At the beginning of the movie, we meet Chris, a self-made millionaire in the tech world. He's on a tense call with his estranged wife, Jamie, discussing their divorce. Chris admits he still hasn't signed the final papers or the alimony deal. Though he built a massive company from scratch, his obsession with work cost him his marriage and family. Feeling ignored and unappreciated, Jamie left him and took their daughter Willow with her. Jamie tells him she's moved forward with her life and that he should too. But for Chris, it isn't that easy. He confesses that he sold his company, hoping it might prove he's ready to change. Jamie, however, isn't convinced. She believes he did it for financial reasons, not love. Their call ends coldly, closing the door on their relationship once and for all. Later, we see Jamie with Willow. The little girl misses her dad and asks her mother why she doesn't love him anymore. Jamie admits she misses him too, and in truth, she never completely stopped loving him. That same night, as part of his usual midnight routine, Chris visits his favorite grocery store. While browsing, he notices a young woman struggling to pick out a bottle of wine. Chris steps in to help, and during their brief conversation, learns her name, Sky. She's effortlessly stunning, confident yet mysterious, the kind of woman who turns heads without trying. Chris instantly feels drawn to her. Outside the store, Sky waits for her Uber, only to discover her ride was canceled. Seeing her stranded, Chris offers to drop her off. She hesitates, but eventually accepts. When they arrive, Chris is surprised to see she's staying in a shabby roadside motel. Sky seems uneasy, admitting she had an argument with her roommate Lisa and doesn't want to face her right now. Sensing her discomfort, Chris suggests she stay at his place for the night until things settle down. Sky initially refuses and starts to walk away, but then stops, reconsiders, and agrees. They leave together for his mansion. When Sky steps inside, she's visibly awed by the luxury around her. Chris offers her a drink, and soon they're deep in conversation about work, life, and everything in between. Chris shares that he made his fortune developing apps, games, and digital banking software. Sky tells him she's a model in town for a short-term project and also works part-time as a waitress. Something about Sky feels different. She's open, funny, and full of life, and Chris finds himself relaxing in a way he hasn't in years. Hours slip by without them noticing. Before they know it, it's past 2:30 a.m. When Sky mentions going home, Chris insists she stay the night. She agrees, and the two end up spending the night together in a whirlwind of passion. For the first time in a long while, Chris feels genuinely connected to someone. But the next morning, he wakes up alone. Sky is gone. She quietly returned to her motel, where Lisa had been up all night worrying. When Sky finally comes in, Lisa demands answers, but Sky ignores her and collapses onto the bed without a word. Meanwhile, Chris sits alone in his massive, silent house, emptier now than ever. He can't stop thinking about Sky, but she left without giving her number. Later that evening, unable to get her off his mind, Chris visits the bar where she works. When Sky spots him, she doesn't seem surprised, almost as if she expected him. After her shift, he offers to drive her home. As they walk toward his car, they catch someone trying to break in. Before Chris can react, Sky grabs a bottle and throws it at the thief. Startled, the man slashes Chris's leg and flees. Sky rushes him to the hospital, stays until he's treated, and then takes him home. With his injury limiting his movement, Chris now needs help, and Sky volunteers to stay and care for him. She jokes about being his personal nurse and promises to keep him company. Grateful for her warmth, Chris agrees and even gives her access to his home's security code, letting her move in temporarily. Everything happens quickly, maybe too quickly. Back at the motel, Lisa paces nervously when the landlord, Ronald, mentions that things used to be calmer before Sky showed up. He warns her to be careful, but Lisa, blinded by affection, tells him to mind his own business. Moments later, Sky returns. Furious, Lisa confronts her, but before the fight escalates, Sky pulls her close and kisses her, revealing they're lovers, not just roommates. Lisa's anger comes from heartbreak, but Sky seems unfazed. That same day, Sky packs her things and officially moves in with Chris, cutting all ties with Lisa and the motel. Soon, the two grow even closer. Sky tends to him with care, and Chris, lonely and emotionally vulnerable, falls deeply in love. The next morning, Ronald bangs on Lisa's door, shouting about overdue rent. When he forces the door open, he freezes. Lisa is lying lifeless in the bathtub, covered in blood. Before long, Sky's behavior starts to shift. She becomes distant, secretive, and watchful. Chris occasionally catches her peeking at his phone, pretending it's nothing. When he falls asleep, she quietly goes through his messages. And yet, Chris remains blissfully unaware of the darkness slowly surrounding him. Nights melted into one another, filled with passion and desire. Sky gave Chris everything he thought he'd been missing. Days passed in a blur, until one morning, Chris woke to an eerie silence. His phone was gone, and every device in the house was suddenly locked down. Only the television and the security system were still running. Sky was nowhere to be found. Minutes turned into hours, and his unease grew into panic. That missing phone wasn't just personal. It contained sensitive corporate data. Then a breaking news alert appeared on the TV. A woman's body had been discovered at the same motel where Sky once stayed. The victim was Lisa. At first, police suspected suicide, but the landlord, Ronald, insisted otherwise. He told officers Lisa wasn't suicidal, and that her roommate, Sky, had vanished that same morning. Just then, Sky strolled back into the house as if nothing had happened. A box of fried chicken in hand and a casual smile on her face. She invited Chris to eat with her. Still shaken, he asked about his missing phone. Sky stayed calm, saying it must be somewhere in the house and they'd search for it after lunch. Her voice carried a sharp edge, as if she were already in charge. She even announced she'd quit modeling and was now his full-time caregiver. Chris tried to steady himself, then mentioned the news about Lisa. Sky's expression didn't change. No surprise, no sadness, nothing. When he insisted they contact the police, she smiled coldly and said it wouldn't matter, because she was the one who killed Lisa. That's when everything clicked. Sky wasn't a random stranger from a grocery store. She was a manipulative con artist who had been studying him for months. Lisa had only been a pawn. Her roommate status gave Sky the perfect cover to spy on Chris. Every interaction, their chance meeting, their late-night conversations, their romance had been calculated. Sky already knew his habits, his schedule, and his secrets. Raging, Chris demanded she leave, but he was already too late. Sky had complete control of his home, his security system, and his digital life. When Chris tried to run, Sky used his smart home system to lock every exit. A moment later, a jolt of electricity surged through him. Everything went dark. When he woke, he was bound to a wheelchair, wrists, ankles, and mouth tightly restrained. Sky appeared moments later. She demanded his passwords and financial codes. When he refused, she shoved the wheelchair over, sending him crashing to the ground. Then she pressed a power drill against his injured leg until he screamed in agony. Broken and desperate, Chris finally gave in. Within minutes, Sky had transferred his entire fortune into her own accounts. Meanwhile, back at the motel, Ronald was searching Lisa's old room. There, he discovered a telescope aimed directly at Chris's mansion, proof that Sky had been spying on him long before they met. Horrified, Ronald decided to keep an eye on her. Back at the house, Sky's cruelty deepened. Enraged, she played a video of Jamie and Willow, warning that they'd be next if he didn't comply. Terrified and broken, Chris surrendered. Under her orders, he watched helplessly as she sold off everything: the furniture, the art, even his most precious collectibles. One afternoon, after finishing her errands, Sky left the mansion, unaware that Ronald was secretly watching. The moment she was gone, he broke in through a window. Inside, he found Chris barely conscious and still tied to the chair. Ronald ripped off the tape from his mouth, and Chris begged him to call the police before Sky returned. But Ronald hesitated. He wanted payment first, $200,000 in cash. Chris pleaded that he had no access to cash, but offered him a priceless Picasso painting worth millions instead. Only then did Ronald agree to untie him. There was one problem. Ronald didn't own a phone. He believed 5G signals caused cancer. Chris's last hope of calling for help vanished instantly. Before they could figure out what to do next, Sky realized someone had broken into the house. She stormed back in. Ronald grabbed a knife and tried to threaten her, but Sky didn't even flinch. She laughed, mocking him for being naive enough to walk in alone. Desperate, offered her the painting and begged her to take it and leave, swearing he wouldn't tell anyone what he'd seen. Sky didn't respond to Ronald's desperate pleas. Instead, with eerie calm, she reached for a decorative sword hanging on the wall and charged straight at him. What followed was a brutal game of cat and mouse. To cover the chaos, Sky blasted the home's music system at maximum volume. Chris managed to break free from his restraints and stumble out of the chair. He dragged himself toward the garage, trying to reach his car, only to find it locked. Desperate, he climbed onto a snowbike and sped off into the night. In the frenzy, he hit a rock, losing control and tumbling onto the road, nearly being run over by an oncoming car. The driver, a man named Sebastian, rushed over to help. He seemed kind and genuine, assuring Chris he'd take him to safety and alert the police. Exhausted and terrified, Chris told him about the woman trying to kill him. Sebastian nodded sympathetically, promising that everything would be okay. But Chris didn't know the truth. Sebastian never called the police. Instead, he secretly phoned Sky. Minutes later, instead of freedom, Chris found himself being driven right back to the same mansion. That's when the horrifying truth hit him. Sebastian wasn't a stranger. He was Sky's stepfather and her partner in crime. He had raised her to con and exploit wealthy men like Chris. They weren't just thieves. They were professionals, running elaborate scams built on seduction and manipulation. That night, still tied to the chair, Chris could hear Sky and Sebastian together in the next room. Disgust and regret consumed him. How could he have ever fallen for her? Moments later, Sky returned, wiping tears from her eyes. She apologized softly, saying she had to feed the wolf. She admitted that Sebastian was nothing like Chris, that, strangely, she had actually cared for him. Her words were filled with confusion and guilt. Seeing a glimmer of hope, Chris spoke gently. He told her that she could have had everything: the money, the house, the love. He would have given it all to her willingly. "Why are you still here?" he asked. "You already took everything that matters." Sky's reply was chilling. There was still one thing left: his bearer bonds worth $14 million, locked away in a US bank safe deposit box. To access them, she needed his thumbprint. That was the only reason he was still alive. Chris made up his mind. He'd never let them get it. But Sky and Sebastian had already decided otherwise. They didn't plan to take him to the bank. Instead, they severed his thumb and wrapped it in cloth. Hours later, Jamie and Willow arrived at the house, worried because Chris hadn't answered any calls. Seeing a car parked outside, Jamie assumed he had guests. She had no idea of the horror waiting inside. As Willow headed toward her room, Sky appeared, smiling politely and introducing herself as Chris's nurse. Jamie's instincts screamed that something was wrong. Then Sebastian emerged from the shadows. When Haney demanded to see Chris, they shoved her and Willow into a locked room, and what they saw froze them in terror. Chris was barely conscious, his leg badly injured, and his thumb crudely bandaged. Meanwhile, to avoid suspicion, Sebastian wrapped Chris's severed thumb carefully, making it look like a normal wound. Together, they set out for the bank. Back at the mansion, Chris insisted it was their only chance. If they didn't escape before Sky and Sebastian returned, none of them would make it out alive. Meanwhile, at the bank, the vault manager greeted Sky and Sebastian warmly. "Mr. and Mrs. Deckers, I presume?" he asked. They smiled and confirmed. When the officer extended his hand for a handshake, after several tense tries, the scanner finally recognized it, and with a metallic groan, the massive doors slid open, only to reveal nothing inside. The vault was completely empty. No cash, no valuables. Back at the house, Chris's heart sank. He knew the truth would surface soon, and when Sky and Sebastian discovered the vault was empty, they'd return, this time, to kill them all. Meanwhile, little Willow crawled through the air vents, trembling with fear but determined to help. She remembered the password to the locked door and managed to release everyone just in time. Sky and Sebastian were back. Handing Sky a gun, Sebastian coldly ordered her to finish Chris while he searched the other rooms. But as he turned away, Chris leapt from the shadows, swinging a pickaxe. They wrestled violently, but Sebastian's strength quickly overpowered the wounded man. Then, Sky stepped into the room, gun in hand. Sebastian barked at her to shoot. She raised the weapon, her finger hovering over the trigger, but hesitation filled her eyes. And in a shocking twist, she turned the gun toward Sebastian and fired. He collapsed instantly. Maybe, despite everything, she had truly fallen for Chris. But love or not, Chris wasn't taking any chances. Fueled by adrenaline, he attacked Sky with the pickaxe, then grabbed his phone and hid in another room. Using the smart home system, he turned the entire house into a trap. Music blasted at full volume, lights flickered off, and chaos filled the space. Disoriented, Sky stumbled through the darkness while Chris prepared to end it once and for all. Even with his injuries, he confronted her head-on. They fought brutally, but Sky was faster, stronger, unrelenting. She beat him down mercilessly. Just when it seemed over, Shamey burst in, throwing herself at Sky. A savage struggle broke out between the two women, each fighting for survival. But Sky's fury was unmatched. She slashed and struck until both were bloodied and barely standing. It was almost over. Sky aimed her weapon for the final blow, when a single deafening gunshot echoed through the house. Sky froze, eyes wide, then collapsed to the ground. Willow stood there, trembling, the smoking gun still in her hands. She had saved her parents. Jamie pulled her daughter close, sobbing in relief. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance as the nightmare seemed to fade, but then a faint gasp drew their attention. Sky was still alive. Struggling for breath, she whispered one final word, Margaret, her real name. Then, tears rolled down her face as life slowly left her body. In those last moments, the truth became clear. Sky, or Margaret, had entered Chris's world to deceive and exploit him, using his loneliness against him. Yet, somewhere along the way, her act turned real. When Sebastian ordered her to kill Chris, she couldn't do it. Turning the gun on him was her final act of rebellion, proof that she'd lost control of the game she started. Her dying tears carried everything: regret, sorrow, and a haunting love for the only man who had ever truly cared for her. And as her final breath faded, the chilling story came to its end. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can catch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.